Hey everyone, Ernie Tech here. What I want to do in this video is talk a little bit about the lineage of PC operating systems as they came from, it looks to me a lot like the sources were IBM engineers, employees, designers, whatever. But you can see a lot of lineage between the mainframe operating systems and the ongoing development of the DOS environment back in the early 80s. And I'm going to look at that a little bit and show you what I think is pretty good evidence of this. Before I do that, let me just show you something here on the right-hand side. This is a website called pcjs.org, and it's by a guy named Jeff Parsons, who is presenting or giving us an emulator, a hardware emulator. In this case, it is an IBM 5150 emulator, which is an 8086, Intel 8086 environment. It looks like this. You've seen these things back in the day. This is what is being emulated here, but one of the things I wanted to show you, which I think is really important here, is this little, let me just get this guy up and running here, this little power switch right there is so reminiscent of IBM and the way they built things. That looks like it's right off of an S360 machine. But anyway, this is what we're going to be emulating, is this this machine, and we've seen them. We've probably played with them back in the day. Probably had them in our office, lined up to use that. And they had 2 floppy disks, no hard drives, 64K of memory because Bill didn't think you needed a whole lot more. But that's what we're going to emulate right here. So let's put this thing off to the side. What this does is it allows you to load an operating system. In this case, we're going to load the CP/M-86 version 1. Now, it says IBM, but it's actually Digital Research. Gary Kildall, you know the story about IBM and the airplane and MS-DOS and Bill Gates, whatever. This is the story of CP/M operating system that was licensed by IBM. And it's very rudimentary, but bear with me, and you're going to see a lot of history here that I think overlaps and gives you a pointer right back into the mainframe environment. Over here, I have an instance of VM 370 running on Hercules, getting ready to load the CMS operating system, the conversational monitoring system environment. Now, I have been given great information and help in the form of videos from Professor Furland, Renee Furland up in Montreal, and from that I have been able to make great strides in utilizing CMS. A long way to go. I still have my favorite mainframe operating system, which is Music SP, but that's just because I like the soft hand holding that I get from Music SP. Nevertheless, let's log into here as a CMS user and see what I'm talking about here. So let's log in. CMS user, and it's all the same. And that's all you got to do. Now, in this environment, that tells you you're ready. This says it's running. This is what you're inside of. That's all it's going to tell you. Over here in your classic DOS form environment, you have your A drive. This thing here says there's 2 diskettes. Maybe there's a B. Let's find out. Let's find out if there's a B, just for fun. No. But was worth a try. Now, if this thing gets locked up, it's easy to fix. And what you do is you just hit the reset button. Watch. Dum-dum. Takes a second or two. Jumps back in again. It's a really cool online system. It, to me, was easier than trying to load up a SimH instance. It was just easier to do. You'll see why. But when anything goes sour, if you can't get it to function or it just does the usual nonsense, you just push the reset button. All right, where's the similarities? What am I talking about here? Over here in CMS, if I type in dir, and the reason why I want to use dir first, for a couple reasons. As Professor Furlan pointed out to me in one of his videos, look, this stuff is, by and large, it is a file management. There's file management tools is what they are. That's what computers are at this level. They're a file management tool. You create them, you create files, you edit files, you compile programs from files, you delete them, you copy them, you do a whole myriad of things with files, which is exactly what we're doing here. And if I type in dir here, and I put in the same command over there, we'll do this one first. This is what you get. Okay? Over here, got to put it in the right spot. this is what you get. Obviously, there's a lot more information here than here, but this is the very bottom of the ladder as far as the DOS type operating systems in the newly minted PC environment. Now, there were personal computers before '82. There was the MSI line, the Altair line, and a few other things that came from the UK and so on. But it really wasn't until this kind of environment started to show up, and various clones and stuff, that these operating systems began to come online and become sources of development. Over here, let's see how this plays out in the development of what you're seeing here. So we are in the CMS environment. One of the things I learned early on is you don't use the Enter key over in CMS. You use the Alt-C key, which is the same thing as the Clear key. And the Alt-C key will drop you into the next page of your listing. So if I type in dir, I want to show you something right here. I made a file called hello data A1, and this shows the way in which the mainframe is managing the record-based file. I created the name hello. I created the label data. It wasn't assigned. I just typed in DATA. It didn't matter. Right here, it's kept on a mini disk, which is a little subdivision, a little disk inside of the volume. I think it's VM50-1 is that particular volume. I'm not sure. But this is a mini disk, and this is where it's located. It is a fixed file format, 80 characters. I've got 9 lines in there. It doesn't use more than 1 block right now. I'm never going to grow because I'm not putting anything else in it. And this is when I made it, and this is its label, locational. Over here, because we're so early in the development of a DOS-based system, you get none of that. You just get the name and the type. But a lot of these things are arbitrary. You can create this. So I had already created a file called hello.txt, which is blank. I just created it as a marker. Let me go back over here and get this guy. Now, here's where I find the commonalities. I created the name hello. I created the file type. I told it to put it on A1. Over here, I created hello. I gave it the file type, and I told it to put it on the A disk. So there is no hard disk over here, but I decided if I get the second diskette to run, which it doesn't, the B, I could put an identical copy of this onto the B drive, because that's what we used to do. We would do whatever we were doing on the computer on this thing, and then we would copy things from one disk to the other. So all it's saying here is that this information in A1 could be duplicated in another mini disk of a different name. I don't know, A2, B2, whatever. And they don't even have to know each other exists, but they can be identical, or you can manipulate them in some fashion. Okay, so having said all that, what other similarities? Well, one of the other similarities is the way in which you edit files. Now, you have your usual stuff where you have your copy and your delete and so on, but what if you want to edit the file? Because that's essentially what you're doing when you're creating a program. You're editing it, and then you're compiling it, and you're running it, and whatever it is you're asking your computer to do, you have to do it by the way of a file, at least at this level. So let's try it over here. In CMS, there are 2 editors. One is a line-based editor that I find very difficult to use, and I don't think I'm the only one. And then there is a full-screen editor that came a little bit later. But I don't know if that's available to, I don't think it's available to maint, the user maint in CP, in the control program. It's only available in CMS. It's not available over here in CP/M. But let's just try something. I know that I have a file called hello data A1. So if I type in edit hello data A1, that's pretty much all I get. Now, you can do things like add lines, and you can delete lines, and you can manipulate it a little bit, but it's got to be done exactly right. Otherwise, it's kind of tough to get it to do what you want it to do. A lot of people get very frustrated with this, and they use the full screen editor. But I just wanted to show you that this was a line-by-line editor, and there's the 9 lines from the top of the file to the end of the file, and that was it. And there'd be 80 characters before each new line, which was a record. Unlike over here, which in the PC environment with the PC operating systems, you don't have a record-based format. Your lines are separated by carriage returns, and they can be variable length. So over here, I come back over, and I just hop out of this by typing in File. Now notice nothing happens, but that's not true. Down here it says More. And what you have to do is you have to use Alt-C to get out of that, unlike over here where you're just using your Enter key to get to the next line. So in this environment over here, I have something similar, ed hello.txt. And it's blank, so I can put in I for insert, and I can say, hi there, this is a test, and then I can do a Control Z, I can write that, and then I can exit that, and that takes me right back to the prompt, and I can do a dir, and I can see what I put in to that particular file. Well, I actually had more stuff in there, but you can see I'm adding to it. But that's what you would see. You would see a lot of the lines of junk that I was putting in there using this line-oriented method. But again, what I saw as a pattern was simply you created the file name, you created the type, and you kept it on a drive characterized by a letter. This is not like Unix. Unix is a very different system, but as far as a DOS operating system is concerned, I see Lineage from CMS and other systems from IBM that were created by IBM, not necessarily Music SP or MTS, because later in Music SP's development, it had more of a Linux-style subdirectory type system. The other thing to remember is now in the beginning stages, there were no subdirectories. It was all flat file system, and the way you manage things were to create, I guess, creative ways of naming your files to keep them related to some project you were working on, or something to that effect. Later on, they created the full screen editor. So watch over here. I put in hello, data A1. And now you're in an environment that looks familiar, and it follows the standards or the ways of working with the terminal emulator. So if you want to go to the next page, you hit F8. You want to go to the previous page, you hit PF7. If you want to get out of it, you hit press PF3 or F3 here on your PC keyboard, and it pops you back out. But you still had a lot of information about your file system coming across. However, in the very early development, you got very little. But that changed. And watch what we can do with this emulator, this online emulator. Very interesting. So Jeff Parsons has put a lot of stuff out here. And most of it I haven't even tried because I'm not really interested in anything right now but the operating systems. But I wanted to try Compaq, because Compaq licensed its operating system from Microsoft for its line of hardware. Remember Compaq? So let's try MS-DOS 212. So I'm going to get out of this CPMS environment. I'm going to go into the MS-DOS 212. I reset the machine. I get a scrambled brain look. A few seconds for it to do its magic. Finally pop in, and there it is. Oops, I'm sorry. I forgot. I have to load it. Okay. Load it first. Then reset it. Hold on. Give it a few seconds. It takes a little bit longer because it's bigger. And give it about another 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 seconds. There it is. And it says, well, what time is it? I don't know. It's whatever time it is. All right, so now this is Copyright Compaq Computer in 84. The Microsoft version's from 83. A year in those days was like a lifetime of development. A lot of things happened. So if I'm back over here at the ready prompt in CMS and I type in dir and I get this pretty listing of everything. Now, unlike CP/M-86, I type in dir. Now I start to get more information in a similar way. I start to get dates and times and sizes. And that, to me, shows the lineage of growth, of development, of what's coming into play in the PC world from its predecessors over here in CMS and in the IBM world. Let me just go to the next page here. So why is this interesting? Well, it's a history lesson. Maybe I'm not seeing it properly, but I envision in my head it's the 70s, and maybe IBM is starting to get wind of the PC world, starting to rear its head. They know about the Altair systems, the M-size running around. They know about this world of guys with big sideburns and long hair, wearing interesting-looking jackets and so on, sitting around boards and trying to get their own new computer to work. And they went in on that, and they want to have. They don't want to lose this market. So there were a lot of guys that maybe transitioned from the PC mainframe environment over into the growing, burgeoning PC environment, and the 5150 hardware that IBM was producing needed to have an operating system. And so you can see the lineage that's occurring here. Even though it's a Microsoft after CPM, it's still a Microsoft operating system, but there was a lot of overlap, a lot of brain talent moving in one or the other direction. So you can see how this developed. Anyway, let me know what you think. I think we're onto something. That MS-DOS really has its lineage right directly back into IBM CMS and other operating systems that have this flat file methodology. And maybe the guys and ladies who were working in the mainframe environment moved over and directed their attentions to the growing PC market. Okay, my 2 cents, my thoughts. Let me know what you think. Comments are great. If I don't know what I'm talking about, let me know. This channel has to have sense and it has to be accurate, or it's of no value to anybody. And subscribe if you haven't. I sure appreciate it. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.